Andrew Jeune here with your Asian Racing Review. I'm joined as always by editor of AsianRacingReport.com and Michael Cox. Michael, loads to get through today and through March as well. We've got Australian 2-year-olds, we've got Super Saturday in Dubai, starting to hit top gear in Japan as well. We build up to classic season there. We're going to start off though with Zac Purton, who had a flying mission to Australia on the weekend at Randwick, and a Group 1 double. Nice way to spend your Saturday afternoon.
Yeah, first time post-COVID for Zac Purton to come to Australia, and just what a classy couple of rides. A Group 1 double, nearly a treble on the day. We'll get to that, but you know, I love these two Group 1 rides, different in their own way, and just really showcasing what it is that Zac Purton's become in Hong Kong.
Let's start off with Artorius then. This horse had quite a decent reputation. They took him overseas last year, went to Royal Ascot, ran the July Cup third on both of those occasions, even travelled to France. Didn't quite work out for him there, but what was different this time around for him, do you think?
Well, Zac Purton was different, and that influence we've seen many times in Hong Kong. Zac Purton first time, but this horse was, look, firstly, the talent's always been there since a 2-year-old, but he's been getting out of his ground in those Northern Hemisphere starts way back. Those rides have been well criticised and well scrutinised, running on far too late. So he needed to be closer, but it's not as simple as that. This horse is a hard horse to handle. He's an end-tire and he knows it. And Zac really just showed like that iron will of his. Firstly, to get the horse out of the gates clean, get him in the spot that he wanted, be in the position that he wanted, and to just come from Hong Kong. You know, we saw a few years ago Joe Moreira come from Hong Kong. It's not as simple as just getting off the plane and riding, especially on a rain-affected track in a big race, exposed form against a really top caliber jockeys. Yeah. You've really got to have a game plan. And Zac's turning up cold with an incredible race plans and the ability to execute. And that's what he did on Artorius. There's a lot of skills of Zac's on show there, including his tactical ability, but then the ability to execute. And then when the gap came, he stayed inside, looked for runs. And then one of the most underestimated aspects of Zac, now, I'm not old enough quite to have a guide on a jockey they called the enforcer Mick Dittman when I was young, but I'm sort of familiar with the stick work of Greg Hall back in the day, perhaps. If you go and watch Superimposers, Cox Plate win, I think Greg Hall gets him plus 30 times, one after the post as well. Zac's not as prolific with the whip. I don't want to say it's just all about iron will, but horses just don't lay down for him. No. He stood over that horse. If there was any sort of question about whether Artorius was giving everything, he gave everything on Saturday under Zac. When he really goes for the effort and reaches for the whip, he stays balanced though, and the horses really flatten out and never give up for him. Well,
that's the key as well. You talk about his balance. You see him in a driving finish when he's riding as hard as that, but he barely moves. The rest of him is absolutely motionless, and the balance is incredible in that regard.
Yeah, and maybe that's why we don't give him credit for it. Like if you said like who's the strongest in a finish, you might say Nash Rawiller, because there's a lot going on, as they used to call him in Hong Kong. Chow Fan fried rice, looked like he was cooking a wok of fried rice with that action of his. It's effective, but it was messy. Zac, tight and tidy, but just as effective. Horses just really find the line for him.
Yeah, all right, so that was Artorius for the China Horse Club, and then straight after that, the link into to Communist.
Yeah, and that's the difference that I was talking about between the rides. Like Zac spent 16 plus years in Hong Kong, and that ability to ride the horse, like he rode the race on Artorius. He made Artorius do things that Artorius didn't want to do, basically. Take up a position, get out of the machine, right? A reluctant conveyance, but then he's on a horse there where on Communist, where he really, like, there was a touch of Ryan Moore about it in the way that he allowed the horse to find his rhythm and confidence in the middle stages. He wasn't in a hurry. He judged the pace beautifully. He wasn't in a hurry to fill the space up in front of him and take up positions, let the horse build and build. And then by the time he come off the turn and peeled off, this horse was really just finding his momentum at just the right time. It was just a beautifully timed ride, pretty to watch. And look, I think incredibly validating for Zac. He's been away from Sydney, and there's always those comparisons. He hasn't been able to travel as much, you know. So for all of his dominance in Hong Kong, you know, there was always the question: where would he be placed in the Sydney jockeys room? Where would he be placed? Would he challenge J-Mac? And I think got a hint of where he would be placed if he came back to Sydney, and I guess that might be our next question.
Well, actually, just hold that thought for a second. As you mentioned before, it could have been 3 winners and probably should have been. He rode Tycho and Evie in the last race, was just about to mount what could have been a winning challenge. And then the horse on his inside, Zac Lloyd ridden mount, has hung out quite badly and almost brought him down.
We did almost bring him down, and Zac Lloyd, the apprentice, 18 years of age, obviously an incredibly talented jockey, son of former Hong Kong or South African, but Hong Kong based jockey Jeff Lloyd. Look, I thought 1 week for this incident was light.
12th to the 19th that Zac's out for.
Look,
Zac Lloyd.
Zac Lloyd, after the race, was, obviously he lost the race on protest as a Group 3. He was shattered, and he looked a bit shell-shocked afterwards, as you would be. A lot of pressure. I'd say after the line, Zac's probably given him some pretty direct feedback at high volume, because, Zac's nearly a bit of turf, and really, as Zac said on radio Monday or this morning, walking away was a win there. And you wonder, with some of these incidents, he was lucky to stay on. The punishment. Now, I'm not here to crucify Zac Lloyd, and I understand that he was sorry. It was an accident. There wasn't deliberate. It was a whip strike that the horses reacted to, and maybe inexperience. So if I've got criticism here, it's probably slightly for the stewards. Obviously, they've taken into account a guilty plea and a jockey that's showing a lot of remorse with a lot to learn. But I'm wondering, there's a lot of talk about these apprentices in Sydney and the crop that we have with not only Zac, but Tyler Schiller. We've got Rhys Jones, Dylan Gibbons. This is a great group of jockeys, but I wonder about the wisdom of putting them in Group 3 races like this, in stakes races where they can't claim, under a lot of pressure up against these top riders during the carnival, whether they're learning what they need to learn and what the benefit of that is.
Well, he's got a week to think about it. And they do have quite a good program in terms of getting support and advice from senior jockeys here in Sydney as well. So I'm sure that's something that they'll be around him and talking to him about as well. And of course, following on from that as well, talking about Zac's future, he's brought this up himself, but an incident like that, you wouldn't be human if it didn't give you food for thought as well going forward.
There's a lot to consider for Zac Purton, and it's become the talking point. Whenever Zac comes back, whenever he's in Hong Kong, he's going to be asked about it. He doesn't help himself much about retirement, because he just throws it out there and says, well, I'm going to retire, I'm not sure, maybe this, maybe that. Now, maybe he'll come back to Australia. Now it was like he's always been adamant, no, I don't want to come back to Australia to ride, I want to come back and play golf and enjoy life. Well, that wasn't what I was hearing after the races. Like a beautiful autumn day in Sydney, big prize money, bit of freedom. He looked a happy jockey to me, and I just think there's a bit more going on now than as simple as like, I retire in Hong Kong and as I finish. But then again, he's now throwing out the line that maybe he'll go after Douglas White's all-time record.
There's lots of different things he could do, of course, but you mentioning golf there, using that golf analogy, he's basically been playing on the Asian tour, the Hong Kong tour, for however many years now. It'd be so great to see him on the World Tour, right? Not only in Australia, in the Dubais, in an Arc de Triomphe, at a Breeders' Cup, at Royal Ascot, which I know he's been to before. But
I wonder if that is, I've asked him many times before, because I felt it was unfair when he gets when the names of the top jockeys in the world are mentioned, he's sometimes left out because he doesn't get to do the world tour like Ryan Moore does, or Christophe Soumillon in the past, or even Joe Moreira is probably more well known internationally. That Zac hasn't had those same opportunities, and that's unfair. And now Zac's always been adamant that I've got nothing to prove to anybody. But maybe winning a Group 1 double in Sydney on Saturday has sort of made him realise, well, actually there is something to be said for, in my mind, legacy and how people are remembered, and however unfair that is, because Zac Purton the jockey is Zac Purton the jockey. He's not any better because he won 2 Group 1s at Saturday. He won 2 Group 1s on Saturday at Randwick because he's incredibly good.
Yeah, and he could conceivably ride for another 10 years, easily, if he wanted to. Whether he does or not is another story. But
he could. We have a great interview there with Gerald Mosse on the website from last week. I think he's 57 and he's still going.
And you'll be talking to Zac as well.
Hopefully be talking to Zac this week. We will. We've booked some time in his busy media schedule, and we're hoping to, just probably just roll with a daily update. Yeah. Retirement, Sydney, where he wants to be in the world. Golf.
Well, we'll stay in Australia for the two good 2-year-old races on the weekend, the Todman and the Reisling, as we build up towards the Golden Slip. And it was two of the world powerhouses here, Godolphin and Coolmore, winning both races. Yeah,
impressive winners, and I look, I like them both, but just only quick take on this is that, and even the runner-up in the Todman Red Resistance, I'm not off, but I just think the only takeaway I have out of those two races, hot day, pressure races, and both real slugfests, like these horses had to go deep, and I'm happy with these horses going forward in the future. I think the form will stack up in the long term, but I'm a bit worried about in 2 weeks' time what this would have taken out of them. They're not the types of runs that I want to see going into the slipper. I think it's just a bit more wide open than maybe, and maybe I'll be looking outside of that Sydney bubble for a winner. Maybe we'll look to the Melbourne and some of the stuff around the Blue Diamond. Let's see. We'll talk about that in a couple of weeks.
Okay, all right. That was Cylinder and Learning to Fly winning the two feature races there. Further afield, Super Saturday in Dubai as we build up to the main trial nights for World Cup night as well. How super was Super Saturday?
Well, let's just talk from a Hong Kong perspective. I think the form out of this meeting can be mixed because there's so many powerful horses to come, on the big night, Dubai World Cup night in 3 weeks. Look, from a Hong Kong perspective, Russian Emperor running home, at the end of his race for 5th was a really surprising performance. He was unlucky in the run. Douglas White offered some excuses. I think he's going to run to his best in the Shima Classic. It's just such a tough race, You can't sit here and say that he's going to beat a horse like Equinox, but he deserves to be right there, and it's exciting. Alberto Sanna, the former Hong Kong-based Italian jockey who now rides in the Middle East, will actually be with Russian Emperor in the lead up to the race, working with him each day. That's a big bonus to have a horseman of his caliber there with the horse. That was a big takeaway from me. Just great to see a Hong Kong horse back on the world stage, franking the form. Get out there, take a risk.
Absolutely.
And let's see what because we can bring it back. It's beneficial to the Hong Kong jurisdiction to have this horse, even if he runs an honest 4th or 3rd. It can somehow sneak a placing. I don't think he can win, but great to see him there.
Yeah. Well, I was driving the bandwagon when I was in Hong Kong for Russian Emperor. Not jumping on here late. Always been a big fan. Good form from the UK. Obviously travels. He's thrived on it as well. So I think he can be competitive.
I'd love to see him go on. Yeah. Go on and just go to staying races. The domestic schedule is so limited in Hong Kong. It's basically once he comes back, he's got a Queen Mother Memorial handicap to race in, and then a Champions and Chater Cup against the likes of Senior Toba and Romantic Warrior, and possibly even Golden 60.
Senior Toba ran as well, didn't he? He was a little bit flat. He stays there for now. Casper's got a couple of weeks to work him out.
Yeah, loves a trip to Dubai though, so he'll be hoping that horse is well.
Right. Moving on from Dubai to Japan, we had the Deep Impact Stakes. Of course, on Friday we had our Tokyo Yushun ratings, the first series of ratings up on the website. We'll continue to update those as we get closer to the Derby itself. As far as the result was concerned, this is a major 2,000 Guineas trial. We had a 1,000 Guineas trial on Saturday as well. Tastiera winning the race, beating favourite Top Knife, and One Direct finishing in 3rd. Top Knife was favourite, but there were 3 heavily bets. There were top 3 in the market basically who filled the first 3 placings. Yeah,
look, I'm not particularly excited about this race from a Derby perspective. I thought Top Knife, the favourite, slightly disappointing. Didn't quite settle. It didn't do anything for me to move up the rankings for mine. The winner, Professional, from the Horry Yard, That's always a plus. He'll progress. I don't think that's where our Tokyo Yushun winner is. If you're interested in following Japanese racing and learning more about it, I think our Tokyo Yushun rankings, which will be updated regularly after each of these step races, coming to from our Chinese language website team at Gingma Lung, putting them together. It's a really great way to understand Japanese racing and going forward, learn about a generation of horses, how they line up. These are what's interesting about these races are maybe the winner of the Yushun's not there, but the winner of next year's Hong Kong Cup might be there.
Yeah.
Or these horses,
are the emerging stars.
These are the horses that are going to be
Japan, but on the world stage,
and they're going to travel.
Yeah,
that's what
there was one horse you pointed out to me staying on strongly on the weekend, and that was Amour Blanche. You quite like goes 90-1.
Yeah, look, maybe for the St. Leger, for the Japanese St. Leger later on in the season, just for something longer. But yeah, really big run from the rear in a race that seemed to be favouring the front 3 or 4 in the run.
All right. Any other business, or that's just about all we've got time for?
No, just jump on the Asian Racing Report website. Lots of stuff there to pick over, and particularly the updated Tokyo Yushun rankings. Yeah, we'll be out and about. We'll be at Randwick Trials tomorrow, chasing some news. We'll see what we can find, but a busy time in racing, March. Probably my favourite month of racing. Lots to look forward to.
Thanks as always, Michael. Like and subscribe. Follow us on social media as well, and keep tuning in for more for your Asian Racing Review.